This is the 2025 Brewtubers Online Brewers Club Malt Experiment, Amber Ale. Thanks to our sponsors. 5 Star Chemicals. Check out their new online straight-to-consumer homebrew shop where you can buy everything from Star San and Line Cleaner to the new liquid PBW that can be used at temperatures as low as 58 degrees Fahrenheit. Check out their online store at 5starchemicals.com/home-brewing. Beer and Wine Hobby Homebrew Supply Store. A local homebrew shop in Danvers, Massachusetts. Order any malt they offer in any quantity you want, and if you order before 11 a.m., they'll package your items and ship out the very same day. Visit the store at www.beer-wine.com. Let's get tasting.
Hello, everyone out in YouTube land and fellow Brewtubers. This is Kurt from Fermentation Adventures, stopping in again for the final specialty malt video review for the 2025 Brewtubers specialty malt experiment. There, I've got it out. I flubbed it a bunch of times for some reason. But, so tonight, 11 beers up, 11th beer getting knocked down right now. So, my final review is Exit 12 Nick's beer. For the 2025 malt experiment. I will throw it up in the little spinner so you can get a closer look at the can as I kind of recap everything. Again, for the last time, everybody brewed the same amber ale recipe. We all had the same starting point. We all chose a specialty malt to add to that recipe, brewed it all up, sent it around. Now we're all sharing our thoughts on the different beers. Again, in my goal when I'm ranking these is to look at the malt that was added to the recipe and then try to have an opinion of what malt I liked in the resulting beer, right? That's what I'm kind of ranking it on. There's no BJCP rankings or scoring going on over here. So I'm going to have Exit 12 Homebrew. It's not Exit 12 Homebrew. It is Exit 12 Brewery. My dear friend Nick. His beer, for his variable, he used 8 ounces of Red X specialty malt, which would probably, if we're looking at the recipe, is probably in around 4.5%, 5%, somewhere in that range in the resulting final recipe. Again, the other specialty malts that were in the recipe, a Munich malt and a Caramel 60 were at 10% or 1 pound, I think, depending on your system. So for Nick, he again added 8 ounces. And again, his vital statistics here, his original gravity was 1053, which should be right about the target for the recipe. I don't have it in front of me. If I'm looking at the computer quick. Yeah, I think that's around where everybody was kind of coming in, was the 1052, 1053 range for the original gravity. Final gravity was 1012, and again, his ABV is over here somewhere at 5.4%, 33 IBU. So that's pretty much in line with most of the other beers. You know, nobody went crazy with a Imperial Amber here this year, or an Imperial version. A couple of beers were in the 4.5%. I think one was just below 4, but again, they were all kind of in the the 4.5 to 5.5% range, right? So we have a decent baseline here. So let's open this beer and get into it. Let's see what we got here. It's a tight can, so it's gonna be a real nice hiss. Foam coming right out of the can itself. Pour somewhat aggressively here. Let's see what we have going on for the foam for this beer. Pour it up. Nice. So really nice, extra thick, 1-inch head for the way I poured. Brilliantly clear, really clear beer. Again, on the lower end of the amber ale scale with plenty of bubbles popping up through here. Right on I'd say he didn't calculate the SRM in here, but I'd say this is around 13, 14 SRM range. Again, I think the base recipe, depending on where you were looking at it, I think, where are we here? Yeah, my version was giving it 10.5, 15.5. But the base recipe should have been coming in right around 13 SRM, which I think is the lower end of the BJCP scale. And I would think that's most of the beers really came in on the lower end of the scale. There wasn't a lot of dark beers. Mine with the Cinnamar really pushed it into the dark range. Probably should have just added half of the amount that I did, but live and learn, baby. So yeah, so Nick's beer looks great. All right, let's go for a sippy poo here, or a sniff first. Again, beautiful, beautiful foam. Nice, luxurious foam cap with, leaving some lacing around the glass. It's really nice. Let's go for a sniff. Yeah, that's a real interesting note. I should say Red X is from Best. BestMalz is a German malt, but unlike some of the Wireman malts, it's a different maltster. I looked at, part of me was looking at the amount he was adding, and I didn't really think it would add much here. But yeah, it's like I'm really getting some really nice honey notes from this. Honey notes, some again more light toast, light toffee. Yeah, some more aroma in this, more on the toffee range of aromas in here. A little bit of the Munich underneath, the Munich malt again, which when I say the Munich aroma, I think like a rich, like just kind of a really rich malt backbone is definitely underneath here. Some subtle biscuit, a little bit of fresh bread. And there's something else I'm trying to place in here. Yeah, and there's something else I'm searching for that I'm smelling, but yeah, I'd say I'm getting a character in here. It probably would be, the stone fruit, or no, that wouldn't be stone fruit. I'm thinking cantaloupe, oddly enough. I am getting something I probably would think of like cantaloupe notes. Not really, not the cantaloupe rind, obviously, not the really overripe cantaloupe, but the cantaloupe, if you cut into it, it's probably a little too soon, when it's still probably a little, not gone to kind of that really sweet, soft range where it's kind of a little bit, the overripe range is just a little underripe. And if you cut into it and said, dang it, I'm going to have to, just put my cantaloupe slices in the fridge and hope they soften up. That's where it is again, which again, not unpleasant, but I really like it again. And that's kind of mixed in there with some more of, the caramel notes, the, the light caramel, some subtle toastiness I'm getting from this. And again, some more of the, some more probably again, I think I throw it out with some of the beers I tried, like a honey wheat malt, honey wheat bread, just a generic off the supermarket shelf honey wheat sandwich bread. I'm getting a little bit of that in there. Really nice, really interesting. And again, the honey's kicking around too. There's, a lot going on in here. Again, nothing I'm really getting in here as far as yeast esters. Maybe there's a little maybe a little bit of the subtle fruitiness from an yeast esters coming in here and combining with the malt and making me think of cantaloupe. But maybe not. Really nice. Let's go in for a sip. Okay. So, just stepping away from the malt here because a little bit. The bitterness, doesn't really seem like what I would think from a 33 IBU. There's not really I wouldn't say there's a flabby bitterness in here, but it's not really cutting through and drying out the sip like some of the other beers that I've tasted, like Rigger Brewing. I just tasted. His definitely had more of a kind of like drying finish, which again could be, there's not that much difference in the alcohol levels, but between his beer and Nick's here, but the finish it's a little bit of a softer finish, which is not a bad thing. Because again, in the case for this beer, if I'm looking at the overall mouthfeel, it does seem like it's probably more in the low medium mouthfeel than like the true medium mouthfeel that I was getting from a lot of the other beers. So again, it works with this beer. All right, some more of the hop spice there. But yeah, I'll definitely stand by. There's a little bit of cantaloupe in here. Maybe a little bit of maple syrup on cantaloupe. That's, pancakes and cantaloupe is not an uncommon combo here in the house. So probably that's where I'm thinking with the cantaloupe and a little bit of maple syrup mixed in here. Not really getting... Yeah, nothing really over the top as far as nuttiness goes. More of a, a nice caramel-esque flavor coming through. Some subtle biscuity notes from the traditional kind of biscuit malts from the malt coming through here a little bit. I did shout out toffee a little bit before, but yeah, there's probably a little bit of a kind of toffee, and again, toffee caramel is not really a big difference. Let's see about that. Yeah, a little bit of honey breaking through as well. Again, some underlying bready notes and whatnot from the malt. Nothing really graininess really shining through, but yeah, it's good. I like it. I'm guessing when I saw that Nick only used eight ounces of Red X, I didn't really think it would show up and be too different than some of the other beers, or I should say than the base beer. But yeah, there's definitely some different characteristics going on here that separates it from some of the other beers that are out there, that were in the experience, I should say, out there. But yeah, really good beer, just like all of them. So final ranking, if I put it out there, I'll put the list up, or actually this is the last video, so I'll tack on a little bit of discussion here. So if I look at the top of the list here, again, Billy from Gamdude, Melanoidin Malt worked the best. His beer, I think, what was the best specialty malt edition overall. And then so Billy stays in first. Matt with his amber malt in second. I would leave him in there. Drew with the Griffin malt. Again, that was a kind of a unique character malt that added some more kind of like fruit notes, which is probably not traditionally, again, dark fruit notes, which is probably traditionally not in the amber malt range, but I really appreciated it as far as knowing that different millet-based malt was out there, that would add in here. So I really got a good sense of what that brought to the table. So I'll leave Drew Underground Brewery in third. Dan in the Cara Red. Yeah, I still the Cara Red beer I think I like a little bit better, because I think the beer was probably a little noticeably more sweeter, which was nice. I think what we're kind of going for here. And again, it's not appropriate, a props of the malt itself, but the bitterness came in and really made it a really enjoyable beer. So I'll leave Dan in fourth. So now do I want to put Nick in here, right after Dan or above Hattie? I don't know, Hattie with the Ashburn malt, I really like that as well. I like that a bit better than what we had here with the Red X. Maybe if the Red X was maybe a higher percentage, maybe that would make a difference. But the Ashbourne malt was really nice as well. So I think this is where I'll drop in the Exit 12 Nick's beer here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Number 6 in here after the Ashburn malt. That's where I will put in Nick and the Red X. Again, all these are great beers. It's like splitting hairs. And then just to round out the rest of the top 11 beers, next I had Wreck Brewery and his biscuit malt. Again, I think there's probably a little bit of similarity that was in there with Matt's beer. Matt's the amber Simpson's amber malt just seemed to be more prevalent and kind of just made itself more noticeable in the overall range of things. So again, I think again, the biscuit malt here, maybe if there's a little bit more of that added, maybe I'd crank it up a little bit. Then at number, what are we at? 6, 7, 8 was Sean with the honey malt. Again, I think Sean's beer had a lot of promise, but I just think that there was some issue, either the recipe amounts weren't added in the proper amounts for the recipe volume, or something went wrong, because again, things seemed a little fainter than I expected, but it was really I think there was a really good beer there. It just, things came through a little light, because overall it was it was a 3.7% beer, so that's why that one's where it is. Jerry with the special roast was in next in, what was this, 9 that I had down here. If I recall, I think there was a little bit too much of probably the fruit notes, which is odd considering I liked it in Drew's beer, and I think I was getting some dark fruit notes with Jerry's beer, that I ended up having it down here in the down in the 9th spot, which again really doesn't matter. It's like second first type deal. Hunta Hunta, I think, is the correct way to pronounce it, not Hunhut as I was pronouncing it in the video. I had his toffee malt down here in 10th. Again, depending on just which way the wind was blowing, I could have had that up there in like the top 2 or 3 as well. That had really an interesting pronounced toffee sensation. I think I was referring to the Toffee Fay chocolates that is kind of a Christmas standard around some parts. That's why that beer was really bringing that to mind. Which, if I look back, I think that it was like that's kind of has a hazelnut component to it and chocolate, and I think a lot of those flavors were coming forward. Really noticeable, really interesting, but it didn't really seem something that I would put on the top of my list for an amber ale going forward. I definitely see great places for it, like probably within a brown ale. I think that would be great in that, like an American brown. I think that'd be a perfect malt for an American brown recipe. And then finally, I had mine in last place again. Cinnamar just pretty much added color to me. As far as I can tell, I didn't really get. I had tasted Cinnamar just on its own. It definitely has a taste and an aroma, but none of that really seemed to make sense in an amber ale, and it didn't really seem to be coming through too much. If it was there, it was really subtle, and again, you'd probably only add a touch of it if for some reason you brewed Nick's beer, and you're like, oh, this is really low on the SRM scale for the beer. You probably would add a half an ounce of that. Of the Cinnamar, which would bump it up a couple SRM and put it solidly in the mid range. It did really give some really nice red hues, so it might be a good contender for an Irish red ale to have it more on the reddish hue standpoint than the kind of the American amber. But again, overall, I put it at the bottom. Beer itself is fine. It's just kind of less interesting than some of the other beers with the specialty malts. And there you have it. There's my recap. So with that, I'm wrapping up the 2025 Brewtubers Malt Experiment. Thanks to everyone who took part. Really enjoyed tasting all of these beers. I have more to finish up over time because there was extras. I was the hub. And I probably should send a few of them out for let other folks try, but I sent a box out to El Presidente Big Dog yesterday, and I was like, yeah, he's not in the experiment this year. I can send him some of the cans I have, but then I recalled that he's probably going to show up on Brewmaster Jerry's video, or videos. So I didn't send him some of the experiment cans, so he's out of luck there. So anyway, that's appropriate than nothing, but yeah, let's wrap it up. Thanks to everybody for taking part. Thanks to our sponsors one last time, Beer and Wine Hobby and 5 Star Chemicals for sponsoring the club and making this possible. And until next year for the malt experiment, next year, what's it going to be? hop experiment, yeast experiment, who knows? Cheers. Yeah, it's still good. Still great. Let's top up that.